Greetings and salutations, digital citizens. I am Akil Augustine here with MediaSmart celebrating Digital Citizens Day, brought to you by the good folks at TikTok. And some of you might be wondering, what is Digital Citizens Day? Well, I'll read from my sheet. If you don't know, Digital Citizens Day is an annual event that encourages everyone to interact positively and responsibly in our digital world. So we have some of our favorite digital creators in the space today to celebrate with us. We'll have a couple of conversations, but before that, we got to introduce you to today's cast of characters. So I'll start with the other end of the couch, and that is Kenzie Brenna, a seasoned content creator who spent the past decade inspiring hundreds of thousands of people through her candid discussions on mental health, body confidence, and living authentically online. Kenzie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Coming up in the second spot, we have Santee Sioux, who is representing the Dakota Teepee First Nation in Manitoba. And correct me if I get this wrong, it's the Wikwemkong. I got it. Okay, I got it. Unceded territory in Ontario. She's a multifaceted content creator, fashion model, entrepreneur, and passionate advocate for truth and reconciliation. Up next, we've got Zara Hassan, a Toronto elementary school teacher whose most popular social media content showcases what she wears to work, as well as her humorous and relatable teacher content. Is there a Coolest Teacher of the Year award, and have you won it yet?
I don't know.
There's got to be. I'm going to create it, because I swear, if I had a teacher like you, I never would have missed a class. Up next, we have to shout out the lady responsible for us being here, Kathryn Hill. She is the Executive Director of MediaSmarts, Canada's Centre for Digital Media Literacy, and is here to give us all advice on how to navigate our online spaces safely. Kathryn, thank you so much for setting this up.
My pleasure.
Okay, and my guy, Trey Soar, a multifaceted content creator. He does songwriting. He's an artist from Toronto with over 1.3 million followers across all platforms. Big up my guy, Trey Soar. How you living, buddy?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Today's conversation, we really want to start and kick things off focusing on, I guess, our presence online and how it impacts us as individuals, both in the lived lifestyle that we have, our mental health, how we approach it, because social media is such a new tool for the human race, and we've got to integrate it into our lives. So I want to ask each of you, and I'll start in the same order that I introduced you guys. So Kenzie, with you, what is the biggest challenge that you've encountered living an online digital creator life?
I think opening yourself up to so many different types of criticisms. It's not just one, it's many from different corners of the internet, and really trying to persevere through that. It's hard to sometimes decide, sort through, figure out what criticisms are valid, what criticisms aren't, what criticisms err on the side of bullying, what criticisms are coming from a place of people really knowing that you can do better, and then sorting through that and seeing where you can do better, and then seeing where your truth lies and where you can be grounded in that.
Yeah, fact check this, but I read something about the 100 monkey theory with primates, and that's that they can only have relationships with up to 100 monkeys because they can only keep track of that many social interactions. And for us as humans, we had very small social circles up until the 1980s, 90s, when the online community came on. And now we've got, I guarantee you guys must have thousands of interactions and social relationships you have to manage. So Santee, for you, what's been your biggest challenge?
Well, I think right now Canada is in this stage of acknowledging truth and reconciliation and the calls to action and what that means in the ongoing legacies as well. And so one of the biggest challenges I experienced in both the United States, Canada, let alone the world, is that people are finally getting comfortable in what has happened to Indigenous people with the genocide. And people are trying to, you're educating us, but you're also blaming us. So that's one of the biggest barriers of challenging. It's like, no, I'm not blaming anyone. We have to create this awareness for somebody. The most critical, anti-racist person in my comments would be like, you're just being your victim card, this and that. I experience all the most racist things. But the thing is well, you know what, to me, those are the people that need that the most, and that's why my algorithm pushed it that way. So that's the way I see it. And so in that challenge is that you were finally getting comfortable with knowing what the Indian residential schools, what they were, what they did to the Indigenous children. And, my father and mother, they're both Indian residential school survivors. And so we knew for all these hundreds of years what is happening. And so that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm dealing with, is that people are getting comfortable with the truth now. But one thing I noticed, the shift in the United States has a lot of work to do, because a lot of my comments come through there on social media, is that they're not aware of what's happened at all, let alone they gaslight it, deny it, everything. They don't accept the truth, and they don't want to. And so they're in a lot of guilt still. But that's not what it's about. It's about acknowledging the history and the importance of that, so we can create that, positive and inclusive society for all.
Yeah, I think it's super important, the role social media has played in proliferating the story of truth and reconciliation and sharing about the atrocities of the past, because unfortunately some of the traditional media sources have failed. And so I think, that's noble work that you're doing, and I congratulate you. And if you ever need any support online, holler at me. I'll get at your haters, don't worry.
Yeah.
Zara, let's talk about your challenge online.
I think the biggest challenge that I have right now is navigating a space where now social media allows everyone to create, especially Black BIPOC people who never had the space in media where you had to audition, you didn't get it, or somebody's telling your story, where now we're all creating platforms, telling our own stories in the most authentic way, and we're getting pushback because people are not used to people that look like me on their feeds, right? Especially the way that I dress is kind of different. It's me, myself, and I. And a lot of the times people say, I don't want you teaching my kids because you dress too ghetto or black. And I'm like, oh, you're attacking my blackness online. And it's always that. Again, I talk about the algorithm just pushing your video to the wrong crowd. But as a human, I'm like, you know what? If you think I'm ghetto, then you think everybody that dresses like me can't be in positions like an educator. Why? Who created professionalism, right? Eurocentric ways, right? Yep. And looking at everywhere around, people are different, right? So I think now is just navigating being a walking protest for people that look like me and be we can be professionals too. So I think that's the biggest thing right now is showing kids that look like me that you don't have to change your ways or code switch because of whatever you want to do in life. So, yeah.
I resonate with that, because before there were the gatekeepers, and that was the excuse as to why you didn't see certain types of people out there. But with the removal of the gatekeepers, which is a positive net, now people have to stand up to different types of people and say whether they accept them or not personally. So it shifts the blame from the gatekeepers to you personally. So I do respect that, and I do respect how you present yourself. And I think you look fly, so I appreciate everything you're doing. Now, before we get to you, I want to check in with Trey Sora, because I know you got a huge following. So what's it like for you? What's the challenge for you as a young man creating content in this space?
I'll say for me, it's kind of how social media is in a spot where we've realized how online isn't real life, but it is at the same time. So for me, I've been making content for almost 10 years now. So people notice my face a lot. And sometimes I feel like people think because we're content creators, we're not real people. So people will say stuff to you that people would never say to you in person. Even though I think I have thick skin, that type of stuff doesn't bother me. But even I'll be out and I'll be at the grocery store and someone will be like, yo, what are you doing here? It's what am I, I'm a regular person.
I eat food.
Go to the grocery store.
I eat food.
I eat food stuff, or you might be out at night, say you go to a party or something and there's people looking at you, but you don't know if they're looking at you because they're fans of you or they're trying to do something to you. And it's kind of just deciphering what is what. I think sometimes, especially if you're an anxious person, that could be a challenge for you.
Okay. No, I resonate with that too. Similar experiences shared. So Kathryn, we saved the last word for you on this one. What's your take?
I think, I appreciate everyone's comments. They're really meaningful. That's part of why we wanted to do this, is to talk about the positive ways that we can use social media and the positive, the activism and the importance of being out there and representation, and how, I'm old enough to remember the start of the internet, but how exciting that was when cell phones came into being, because it blew everything open, right? The gatekeepers of sort of traditional media and what was the story and who got to decide what was the story and how it was told completely changed, and all the work that you're doing contributes to that. So, but I do think that piece about, and why we created Digital Citizen Day, is that what happens online has offline implications. And even just the notion of that divide that we used to say, well, this is an online thing and then this is an offline thing. It's just all life. It's all just life, and it's happening in different spaces. But we, for the folks who are watching and loving and engaging with you guys, we want everyone to remember that. Like, this is real. This is real life. It's not another place where something happens and there isn't accountability and there isn't responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real place. And yeah, we acknowledge that there are some negative things that can happen in this real place online, in your comment section, in your direct message inbox, but there's also some positives. So I kind of want to extract some of the better experiences that you guys have had online and whether it is possible to be positive in a space like social media. So let's start with the classrooms and for yourself. Are there examples of positive interactions that you're having?
Of course. The amount of times like people message me and I'm like, I'm just so happy that I found your page because like I'm going through it at my school and everybody's so negative, but when I'm on your page you always motivate me to just be there for my students. And I'm like, because again, being an educator is that connection piece. You're always surrounded by people, but you kind of have to learn how to connect, like make genuine connections. When you're disconnected from that, then and everything around you is negative and everybody's just like always having a bad day, it kind of feeds into that. Like that negativity can just feed into you. So people just come to my page and they just like, I smile. Like, you just make teaching look so happy. Like, my teachers were miserable. And I'm like, I'm so sorry that was your experience. Also, that was my experience. That's the reason why I became an educator, because I wanted a teacher who understood students and what that struggles were like, where teaching was just like worksheets. If you don't know how to memorize this, then you fail. Like, it's ridiculous, right? I feel like there was a quote by this other teacher, I believe is somewhere in New York, but he said it. It's like, education isn't about like making kids memorize stuff. It's actually engaging in inquiry, right? Like research, asking questions, critical thinking. But if you're a teacher and you just want to give education from just memorization, oh, I gave you this, it has to be done a certain way, not all kids learn like that. So I think it gives all teachers, principals a way like, yo, like you can still be good at your job and still also have a life outside, but you're dedicated. And I think that's important. And when other educators message me in my inbox, I was like, you also let me be myself at work today. I wore my favorite sneakers. And I'm like, I'm happy, right? I feel like it's a movement that we're all doing now. It's just showing up as your authentic self. If we're trying to create an inclusive space, then why can't I not show up myself, right? We ask ourselves that question all the time. Then we're all just being fake. So I tell people, it's just like, be yourself and the rest will follow.
Preach.
That's it.
Okay, so we're talking positivity. Let's stick with that theme. Let's talk body positivity. And I know there's communities that support people online, and I imagine you've had some experiences now that you've shared your story.
Yeah. The thing that comes to mind first and foremost are people's partners actually messaging me, where people that they are dating have such low body image that it affects them and they want to know ways how to support their partners. And that always touches my heart because I don't think we realize like how supportive the people are that we're close to. And it just both makes me smile and then also, kind of hurts me a little bit to know that someone else out there is struggling with this. But it reminds me that there is so much more support than we realize. So that always makes me feel like, okay, I'm doing something positive on here. There's positive interactions. And I think because our brains are wired to notice negativity first, if I have 99 comments of people who are cheering me on, being so kind, there can be one person who says something quite insulting towards me. They can be very, 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 very mean or rude. And I might notice myself when I start lingering on that comment, when I start noticing this person's commented before, why didn't I block them? Or like I've had a conversation with them before about this and I, have continued to let them in my space, but now they're saying these other things. And I have to remind myself to focus on the 99 people that took time out of their day to reach out, to send love, to cheer me on, to support me, and not spend all of the time on the one person who is giving me unnecessary comments. So I have to also focus myself to look at the positive, and then I feel more positive about what's going on my page and the conversations that we're having.
Yeah, it's a sad truth that evolutionarily we are hardwired to weight negative comments greater than we do positive comments, because there's a greater likelihood that that will have an impact on our ability to survive. But you're right that we do need to make the top-down decision to, of course, kind of give ourselves some grace throughout those periods. Now we're talking about the positives that can come from sharing your story. I imagine for the Native community and the Truth and Reconciliation movement, the ability to share your stories with other groups digitally has been a boon for the ability to share the actual lived experience.
Ultimately, that was the goal when I made the decision to enter to the digital space of the social media world and what content creation really is. It's focusing on the positive. And there's ultimately, from my experience, there's way more positivity than negativity that I've experienced. And there's positive and negatives in everything. In any form of a relationship you want to build with your online community or not. These are your followers. You take them everywhere with you, right? And so that is the most positive thing I love about it, right? And it could change lives. And for me, not only is that, a lot of the Indigenous children that are on reserves, which a reservation is a displaced small portion of land where our Indigenous people weren't meant to thrive, and all economic opportunities were taken away from these kids and their gifts and their talents. I want them to know that, it's all Indigenous land. It's all Native land. You could travel anywhere off that reservation, because that's the mindset they put in these young children. And so I want them to see a part of themselves in me, that they could do this too. So not only that, but other, non-Indigenous children who are underrepresented in these spaces could see themselves in that positive, relationships that we're building in these communities, that, they feel that they could be here too, whether on social media or off social media, so it's about building those positive relationships. And for me, I've always experienced more positive and some of the most racist comments I've experienced videos, there was always more positive outweighing the negatives, always. And so to me, that's what your goal is. That's your mission, your vision. Why are you doing what you're doing? It's ultimately the goal is positive, to create that change. And for me, I physically experienced the changes in Canada that TRC has brought, let alone Native TikTok has brought. And Native TikTok has been it's a massive tool that I believe has changed policies within the government structures that we face, and the challenges of the racism faced in Indigenous child welfare. What is TRC? A lot of the times, this is the first time the world has even heard of that. And a lot of that has contributed to tools like Native TikTok hashtag movements, right? So it's so many remarkable positives I've experienced.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, I mentioned it earlier, but TRC means?
Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and they're part of they have these 94 important calls to action, and about 50% of those are ongoing legacies, which means that they're still happening today. So we're still in court fighting for justice. We're still fighting for our rights and our lands. Personally, my community of Dakota Teepee First Nation, did you know that we were considered refugees up until July 17th? They finally said sorry to us. Of what, this year? We were considered refugees of this year, of July 17th.
2024.
This is what is happening, and this is why we use social media as a tool of creating that environment and those positive changes. I was considered a refugee as a Dakota.
As someone born naturally within the borders of Canada.
Yes, and so they apologized finally. Canada has apologized to us for not recognizing our rights here as the Oshetishakon, they call it, right? So it's the first time you've heard of that.
I'd like to consider myself someone who is aware and in the know. Yeah. I had no knowledge of that. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I'll make a TikTok on it. No.
Yeah. Is it fair? Can I congratulate? I'm confused as to how to even approach news like that, right?
It's just I'm telling you, when I'm seeing them apologizing, I'm just we're all there was tears. Everyone was crying because it was just emotional that they finally recognized us, that we are no longer refugees to Canada.
Powerful.
Yeah. But you know why they did that though? Because
tell me.
theft of land. They didn't want to keep us part of they wanted to keep us poor.
Yeah.
They were afraid of that treaty nation-to-nation relationship that should have happened. So, like we're still fighting for those justices and making things right. And this is how we use that tool on social media. So going back to the positivity, this is exactly what the kind of conversations it brings.
Absolutely, right? You just planted the seed with 5 new souls. We all now know this, and we're all going to walk away from here and pass it on. I believe the crew and everyone behind the scenes, they all know that. And we're all going to talk about this as we move forward. So that's wild. Thank you so much. Now, sticking with the positivity theme, it's easy to see the positive that comes out of the kind of content that you make, because when I go on your page, I laugh, right? But talk to us about your experience with the positive side of social media, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, even just selfishly, it's awarded me so many different opportunities that I don't even know would have been possible without social media. Like, I was just in Paris at the Olympics, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, bro, what am I doing here? This is insane. And then on the other side of it, just seeing how my content can impact other people, because we live in some dark times right now. There's a lot of negative stuff going on. We're always seeing negativity. So if I could be a person that could even just make you laugh for a little bit, because even the algorithms, they're just showing us negative stuff all day because they know that's what's going to get the engagement. So if I can make someone laugh even for a little bit, take your mind off of it for a little bit, I feel like I'm fortunate enough to be in that position.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I want to give you guys a chance to highlight any work you are doing, because we know social media is giving us an opportunity to have platforms. For myself, media literacy is very close to my heart. Brand new father, I see the impact that social media has on young people. So I'm learning as much as I can about social media to prepare my daughter for, what's going to be one of the more significant battles of her life, which is battling misinformation, disinformation, and all the things that come with it. Are there any initiatives you guys want to highlight? Anything you're specifically working on or hoping to push forward? Zara, I see you nodding.
Oh, sorry, yeah. One thing with me is I'm an educator, but I'm also a community worker. So everything that I do is tied to 2 organizations that I closely work with. So Fiki Data Rescue Center is based in Kenya, where we rescue girls from early bride marriages and FGM, which is female genital mutilation, and we bring them to this rescue center and pay for education. So far we have 9 girls now. 7 of them graduated last year. So we have 9 girls, and I use all my social media platforms to raise all the funds. In 3 days, we've raised about $3,000. Crazy.
Name of account now, please. What are we supporting?
Yeah, so Fiki Data Rescue Center, if you go on Instagram, it's called Fiki, F-I-K-I-A Data, and they do have a website where you guys can just donate monthly if you want to do one-time donation, and you're supporting the girls and their babies. So a lot of them have babies from sexual assault, and they're raising them in these centers, yeah. And what I love about the 2 founders is they actually go into classrooms and teach girls about their periods and provide sanitary pads and things like that. So it's incredible work. And every Saturday morning, I get to kick it with them 9 a.m. I do mentor sessions with them too, talking about topics like friendships, school, subjects, how to time management. So it's pretty cool how social media allowed me to connect with people around the world, because I've never been to Africa. I've never been to Kenya. I am Somalian, but I've never been there. So it's really cool that every Saturday, since 2020, I've had through Instagram that I met these girls, and we're family now, right? So it's really cool. And I do have another one called Smile for Sachi. That's based in Toronto. My brother's best friend passed away through gun violence. So his older sister decided to create a charity on his name. So it's about gun violence, but also we take mothers who had their kids die from gun violence to retreats. So we take them out 2 hours away from Toronto and just pamper them, provide therapy. We have a Smile Society too. We have a boys program for boys from grade 9 to 12 that we run as well. And we throw events and we feed the fasting during Ramadan because we're Muslim.
All right, so follow.
And I think that's just a great example of another positive way that social media has impacted organizations, let alone fundraising and building community. And anytime you post a link, your community trusts you to donate and raise those funds.
Exactly.
At a rapid speed more than prior to social media, when no one would have known that you had that platform to be able to change those girls' lives. like so quickly, like as opposed to before, right?
It's mind-blowing to think that we all now have an audience that we're responsible to. We're all our own little network, and we can promote the ideals and the ideas that we want to see happen in the world. It's empowering.
It's awesome.
Kathryn, I know I didn't give you a chance to speak on this one, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on the positive side of social media for a change.
Well, I think we just heard a whole bunch of examples of the positive side. It really is, a tool for activism. It's a place where young people can create community, where people can create really positive communities. And we also want to say that for some people, it's not such a great experience. And so we want to be mindful of that. We want folks to, especially young people, to share and communicate with the adults in their lives if they're having a difficult time. And we have all kinds of resources about this, but we really want folks to, when they're spending time on social media, ask themselves, how am I feeling? How is this making me feel? Just take a break and think about that, and think about what you can do to change that. Like, do you need to spend time away? Do you need to change what's in your feed? How can you train your algorithm to send you the content you want to see and not the stuff you don't want to see? And of course, you can't train it perfectly. There's always going to perhaps be content you're not interested in, but how do you deal with that? How do you handle that? And making sure you have people in your life that you can talk to about those things. Also, to really take care of ourselves and to make sure as the people consuming this content that we're looking after ourselves too.
You hit the nail on the head, because that was actually where I was going with my next question. We're going to talk about practical tips, tools that you guys are using while using social media to protect your mental health. Trey, what are you doing to protect your mental health online?
Honestly, because I've been online for so long and it's starting to become a habit, there'll be times where I'll just take the apps off my phone and just maybe keep them on like an iPad. If I have to post often, I'll post, and I go. That's it. Like, I don't linger around, because you kind of fall into this thing of just mindlessly scrolling.
Infinite scroll, baby.
Taking in a lot of information. It's like you're not even interacting. You're just kind of just occupying time for no reason. I'm like, yo, this isn't good. And even those times when I take the apps off my phone, I'll notice myself just reaching for my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it literally became a habit. So I'm really just
The average person reaches for their phone 39 to 40 times per day, according to certain reports.
That's insane. And then y'all know when you like feel like your phone's vibrating, but it's not vibrating. There's no way that's normal.
The phantom limb.
That can't be normal. So yeah, I just use it for what it's worth. I post and I go. Just touch grass outside.
Yeah,
walk something.
Touch grass, folks. Kenzie, what's your tool?
I would just love to build on that for a second.
Yeah.
I heard it's actually once every 10 minutes that we at least touch our phone to see if we've had a notification. And
I believe it.
It's been a while, right? Have to see what's going on. Yeah. Whew, okay, we're okay. And someone put it into perspective. Actually, talking about organizations, there's a great organization that I think is very complementary to MediaSmarts called the Center for Humane Technology, which also talks about media literacy and technology literacy. And they were saying in it, kind of like thinking about our cousins, our primate cousins. If we poked a chimpanzee or gorilla, once every 10 minutes. With a notification, and we poke them, they're gonna get they're doing their thing. Leave them alone.
They're gonna go chimp crazy.
Yeah.
You guys seen that documentary?
Sometimes I think about that in terms of myself, like I'm a mammal first, I'm a primate. Like what are these notifications doing to me, or what is that habitual phone grabbing doing to me, doing to my mental health, doing to my self-awareness, my ability to be present in the moment? I think one of the most frustrating things, and I know that we've all experienced this, is when we're out for dinner with someone and we really like the person and we want to talk to them about everything that's going on in our lives, and they're just constantly looking at their phone, or they put their phone out on the table, and you're like, are we talking to someone else?
That's my boys in fantasy football. We can't go anywhere.
Because they're on their phone.
Yeah, they're just checking, okay, what's on.
It almost devalues the present moment. Like, am I not good enough for your attention right now? You're smiling. You're like,
yeah, you sit there and you're like, okay, guys.
Too.
And I was pouring my heart out, telling this great story.
Yeah.
And I've lost all the momentum.
Yeah. So there's something in that where I am noticing my inability to be present the more that I'm on my phone. And I don't think it's an either or. I don't think it's like I'm going to throw my phone and, I'm going to throw my phone out and I'm never going to use it. I think that the practice of regulation and the practice of being present and having designated times on it or times on the apps is something, is a practice. So there's a lot of factors, but I think the noticing and being present, putting it away when it doesn't feel good.
Now, Santi, anything special that you do for yourself?
Yeah, well, I learned very quickly when I started making social media 4 years ago to turn off my notifications. So I have all my notifications off except for my texts, phone calls, and emails. And so I don't go onto my apps unless I'm ready to make some content and I feel inspired, because I don't want to lose the joy out of it. Part of my mental health is like, I enjoy making content and I enjoy creating these changes. And that's what I'm here for on this earth, is that I want to be a part of these changes. And I understand that about myself. And like you said, a lot about it is self-awareness, right? And so I knew before going into these spaces that I really needed to make that decision and know that I'm grounded in my spiritual health and everything, and that I'm ready for this kind of space, right? Because growing up, I grew up in rural Manitoba, outside of Winnipeg, which I experienced the most violent anti-racism that a young Indigenous girl can experience. And so I knew that if I'm going to be an Indigenous content creator, that I'm going to have to prepare for that online as well. But so going through that experience, I had to really prepare my mental health. And but part of that in sharing here today, and anyone listening, is that you have to decide whether it's for you or not. You have to know yourself, what you're doing. You have to know if you're spiritually ready for that, mentally, emotionally, on all levels. You have to be prepared if this is a space for you or not. You have to know if this is for you or not. And you have to be honest with yourself that, can I do this? If so, what am I doing to protect myself, right? And so what I can leave here as an advice to all those who are listening to protect yourself is from experience from our ancestors over the last 500 years. I'm just going to talk a little quickly about the history and where I come from and my upbringing.
Not too quickly.
And sharing it here. For 500 years, I was like, how do I make non-Indigenous people understand our ceremonies? Because for one, we can't really talk about our ceremonies over the respect of the healing of it, that it has for the people that participate in it. So we don't really talk about that. So it's like, how do you articulate yourself in that way that other people can relate to it and protect themselves? And so for the last 500 years, like, Indigenous people have survived atrocities for so many years. And how did they get here today? So they left us a lot of spiritual wisdom, and they left us that, not to get involved emotionally. That is the biggest thing of how we survived and how I survive on social media. So what is that like? What does that look like? Well, in modern society, it looks like operating as a business, right? So businesses don't get emotionally involved. So when you take your social media platform, remember your vision, remember your statement, why you're there. And so I leave that with anyone who's listening, that if you can protect yourself, and potentially that could save someone's life, me sharing that. And so, that's my biggest advice. Operate as a business, carry yourself as a business. I know that's not relatable to everybody, but don't allow yourself to get emotionally involved into the negativity.
The education minister, Mr. Lecce, announced that this coming school year, or this current school year in Ontario, no mobile devices in the school. So I guess that's the best hack you could ask for as a teacher.
It depends, because then how can you teach kids about the importance of how to navigate and use the phones appropriately, right? Because then now it's like, if you're telling kids, it's like telling an adult you can't use your phone anymore, they're gonna use it, right? So I think we have to find a way where we can still teach kids proper ways or manage how they use their phones.
Like a course?
Like a course, yeah.
In school?
Yeah, I think it should be offered rather than just saying like a ban, but more in moderation, I think that kind of should be more incorporated, in my opinion.
Kathryn, your thoughts?
I think it's all about that. It's about opportunities to learn how to use the technology to benefit our lives and to do good and to do better and to achieve, and to not feel like the technology has control over us. And sometimes the messaging that we send when we say it's so powerful and so dangerous, you have to put it away somewhere and we have to ban it, and we have to lock it up, and is contradictory to the opportunity to have a conversation about how are we going to learn how to live with this, because we know it's not going to go away, and we know, as they get older, they have to incorporate it into their lives, and they're going to use it in their classroom. So, there are places where they're not appropriate, and they shouldn't be, and they should be put away, absolutely. But it's also about that balance, about giving, young people the opportunity to also know how to regulate and practice how to do that, so that suddenly they're not in a circumstance where now their phones are available to them, but they have no idea how to regulate it. And we know, we don't know what's going to happen as a result of this. Hopefully some positive and some good outcomes, and hopefully it's going to be valuable to educators and help them be able to do what they need to do in the classroom. But we're also really concerned about what happens after school. Because that's just a part of the day. So what's happening after school, what's happening at home, what's happening overnight, what's happening on the weekends. Where is there opportunity to help young people figure that out is what we look at and what we worry about. But
Yep, the school day ends, but learning doesn't. Guys, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. It was enlightening, it was fun, and it was a pleasure to meet all of you beautiful souls. With that said, final comments. So Trey, I'll start with you because I usually come to you last. Anything you want to say to the people about social media, moving forward, understanding your role as, dude, you're not just an influencer, you're a role model to a lot of people. So walking away from this experience, what would you like to share with the people?
Hey man, I just want to say, especially for the people who are creators who want to be creators, you can do anything that you put your mind to. I know the barrier to entry sometimes seems hard because you're comparing yourself to other people. Maybe you have a friend that has 1 million followers, or you have other people that got certain opportunities, but everyone's path is different. Make sure you just run your own race. And for people that aren't content creators and who are just viewers on social media, make sure you guys just treat each other like you would on the street. People act like social media just because it's a name that it's not real people. Everyone is still a real person. The thing that you said to someone as an off comment might actually affect them. So just be more aware of the things that you say.
Fix up.
Think, would I say this to this person in person? If the answer is no, just keep it to yourself.
Fix up yourself, Kenzie?
For me, I think it's, if I could leave people with one thing, it's to be cognizant of who we're following and why. Are we following people because they are aspirational for what we actually want in our heart and soul? Or are they aspirational because they have maybe more superficial things like stuff going on in their lifestyle? Or do they look a certain way and we want to look like them? And not to shame ourselves for those actions, but just, I think, building on that awareness online and how it can go offline, and then treating people like human beings.
Yeah, keep it humane.
Yeah, keep it humane.
Zara?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I can always say is just always remember your why. Right? Why you started your page, or why you want to get into content creation. Is it because you're a community organizer? Maybe you want to share your story. Maybe you have chronic illness and you just want to share awareness, right? So I think it's important to always remember your why, because if your why becomes from the get, I just want to do it to get followers, then you're never going to feel happy. Right? Because you're relating your likeness or your self-esteem to the amount of likes and follows you get, and that's unhealthy. So yeah, I would definitely say remember your why and just be positive, spread positivity. I think there's too much negative in the world, so if it's not positive, don't say it. That's it.
Spread love.
Spread love.
Santi?
And that's exactly leading on that, what I was going to say. In part of our creation stories, we're told we're given 4 gifts from Creator, and one of them is kindness. And so I feel spread that positivity and remember to be kind, exactly what everyone was saying here today, is that there's so much power into kindness. And, some of the most negative things that as a content creator I received in messages, those are the people who need the kindness the most. and not only online, but offline as well, you know. And so leading on that, also, if you wanted to be a content creator, just try not to be scared. You know, you have a gift, you're unique. Not any of us are not the same here. Like, we're all uniquely different, and we're all uniquely given gifts to share with this world. So if that's what you want to do as a content creator, focus on that, your gift, and sharing it with the world, because like I said before, you could change lives and you could save lives. Like, seeing a content creator like you, your music, your passion, and sharing that with the world has led you into so many opportunities that you never even thought of. And, you know, just think of that and the positivity, and, you know, creator will take care of the rest.
So just echoing all of this is just perfect. I think it's, you know, the idea, I mean, sometimes it feels a bit like a cliche, or like we're just being, you know, too happy, but really it's about believing in the good in people and the good. You know, humanity has a lot of good, and there's a lot of, and overwhelmingly that is who everyone is. So that's why we thought, okay, we need Digital Citizen Day, because we need to remind folks that what they're doing online really matters. And would they do it offline? Probably not, right? So it's that the, you know, part of it is the media. It's the fact that it's on a phone and there's a screen and there's a device, and it makes you think it's not a person. So it's just to think about that and to be mindful of that. But really, it's just the message of there's a lot of really fabulous, great, good people out there, and we can really change that negativity and that negative feeling about what's going on and how we treat each other and how we talk to each other. You know, offline, we can do it online too. And that we know we can create really positive and powerful communities that can bring about change. And so we tend to focus on the negative, as you said, but science has shown, and research has shown, that even if just like 10, you know, there's this silent majority out there, right? And so all of us who are in that silent majority, if we can use our voices to say, hey, that's not cool, I don't agree, that was racist, that was wrong, this is what I believe, this is how it should be, it can make a huge difference. It can really be quite a powerful tool.
Okay, I'd like to thank you and the team at MediaSmarts. I want to send a big shout out to everybody at TikTok, to all our panelists. Where's my camera? Right here. And if I was going to give you guys advice, I'll give you guys the same advice I always give everybody. Breathe deeply. Thank you guys for joining us.